How was working with Jesse Ventura? At the time, you were doing mostly television production. Is that right?
Correct.
So you would have worked closely with Ventura. How was he to work with as a talent at the time?
Well, Jesse actually was great to work with as a talent, and Jesse was fun to produce and fun to work with. What I did not care for working with Jesse was having to deal with his agent at the time, because Jesse was the first guy to have an agent in the business, and I was used to dealing with talent one-on-one, and having to deal through Jesse's agent was challenging, especially back in those days when he was the only one. But overall, I mean, as a talent working with Jesse, I had a lot of fun with that. But Jesse Ventura, the guy you see now, is kind of the same guy that was back then. He had his very opinionated political views, and he was Jesse.
So let's touch on that for a minute real quick. What was the situation with him suing for royalties? Do you recall how that came about and what the conversation was with Vince internally?
I remember it was Jesse because we had Coliseum videos, and on the Coliseum videos, the talent was paid royalties if they appeared on the Coliseum videos. Jesse's voice appeared on the Coliseum videos as a color commentator, and there was debate over whether or not he was due royalties, because as a commentator, it wasn't like being a wrestler, I believe, in Vince's eyes. And Jesse was not paid for his commentary work on the Coliseum videos. So Jesse sued and won.
So let's talk through that, because I've always been curious about this. Was Coliseum Video ran as a separate entity from WWF?
Yes.
So who would have been the owners, and what was Hillbilly Jim's involvement?
Hillbilly Jim became involved in Coliseum Video at a much later date, and he was simply a spokesman.
No ownership role?
No.
So
Arthur Morowitz and Howard Farber were partners with Vince. If you do a little research on Arthur and Howard, they also produced other videos at the time.
And you're being very vague there.
I'm not being vague. I said they produced other videos. How's that vague?
Okay, what are the kind of videos that they produce? Give me an example.
Adult entertainment.
Okay, see, I didn't know that, but I knew the way you're being coy there, that there was more to it.
Yes, they owned a company called H&H Video that produced adult entertainment, yes.
Something that you and I would like, or something that some of your friends would like?
Well, I had a collection, quite a few of the.
I know how
it was research.
Okay, cool.
But Coliseum Video was a separate entity that handled all the video production and distribution for WWF.
And a lot of people who are listening may be a little judgmental about the revelation of that, but in reality, that industry is always kind of on the cutting edge of that type of video delivery service, whether it was back with Beta or VHS or Laserdisc or Blu-ray or HD DVD.
You ever see the movie Boogie Nights?
Yes.
The gentleman who played the Colonel,
Burt Reynolds' character.
No.
Oh, the
older gentleman that came to Burt Reynolds' character and said, "Hey, kid," or "We're making the move from film to video."
Right.
Was very, very loosely based on Arthur Morowitz and Howard Farber. More Arthur Morowitz, because Arthur was a visionary and ahead of his time, and H&H Video were one of the first to go from film to tape in that industry, and they were very, very successful. Arthur was the godfather of video back in the day.
So carry me through, as we talk about Coliseum Video, wouldn't they be the person who was paying the royalties, or why did Vince have to pay it out of his end? I guess is what I don't get.
Well, it was simply because Vince paid the royalties to the talent, and the talent was paid.
So he probably
the company came back and was paid for royalties off of sales and distribution, and then the talent was paid from that.
So it's fair to say that Vince, or WWF, whatever you want to call it, didn't get a third of that partnership, they got a much larger portion since they were creating the content and paying all the royalties.
I don't know exactly what the
Split
was, but I don't really know, but I'm sure it was more than a third.
When you were in WrestleMania 5, did you get royalties?
I never got royalties, but that's a whole nother subject.
Okay. You're going to sue for those royalties?
I was taken very good care of, and I was paid. I was a producer and worked behind the scenes, so I was a salaried employee in addition to my talent duties. So
no royalties.
So no royalties.
Carry everybody through, and I don't want you to necessarily name any names. Let's not use Hogan as an example because we know he's probably on a separate deal. Let's use someone mid-card, and I don't mean to say that disparagingly at all. Well, let's say a Bushwhacker. What would a royalty have been for back in those days for being on a videotape? Can you take a stab at it? And I know
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I know that some of the guys early on when they did the first action figures, that some of those royalties were upwards of like $75,000 for a quarter.
Wow, for a quarter.
For a quarter.
So a guy could have made north of $250 a year just on figure sales.
Back in the day, yeah.
And when you're saying back in the day, you mean the first set with LJN, probably?
First set, yeah, the LJN stuff. Hillbilly Jim, Iron Sheik, Volkov, and those guys.
Do you remember ever hearing of a really big royalty check from video sales? Or was that not a major revenue stream?
It was, but to say that this percentage went to or came from Coliseum Video or videos like that, I wouldn't have a clue.
Do you have any idea what the formula was?
I don't.
Okay. Is it true? I'm just ballparking here. I believe Jesse got several $100,000. Not quite $1 million, but several $100,000.
I think it was 800.
That's what I heard too, and I just wanted to kind of confirm that with you.
Yeah, it's public record. I mean, it was a very publicized case.